My name is Jessica, and I am 32 years old with a beautiful 5-year-old daughter named Lily. Since divorcing my husband Robert 2 years ago, I have been raising her mostly on my own. My mother-in-law Margaret still insisted on being part of Lily's life, which I allowed, despite our strained relationship. Last weekend was the first time I left Lily overnight at Margaret's house. The uneasiness I felt dropping her off was nothing compared to the horror I experienced when picking her up the next morning. If you are watching this, please hit like and subscribe, and let me know where you are viewing from. Stay until the end to learn how one whispered confession from my daughter changed our lives forever. I have always been a devoted mother to Lily, perhaps even more so because of my work as a pediatric nurse. For 8 years I have worked at Memorial Children's Hospital, where I have seen firsthand both the beauty and fragility of childhood. This perspective made me especially protective of my daughter, something that became a point of contention in my marriage. Robert and I met during my final year of nursing school. He was charming, ambitious, and worked as a financial analyst for a prestigious firm. Our relationship moved quickly, and within a year, we were married in a small ceremony with close friends and family. His mother Margaret was the only parent present as his father had passed away from a heart attack when Robert was in college, and both my parents had died in a car accident when I was 20. At first, Margaret seemed supportive. She was a tall, elegant woman in her early 60s, with perfectly styled silver hair and a wardrobe of designer clothes that never seemed to wrinkle. She lived alone in a large colonial-style house in an affluent suburb 30 minutes from our home. Her life revolved around her church, her garden club, and most of all her only son Robert. The cracks in our relationship began to show when I became pregnant with Lily. Margaret had very specific ideas about how I should behave, what I should eat, and even how I should speak to my unborn child. When I did not follow her advice exactly, she would make passive, aggressive comments about my competence as a future mother. After Lily was born, things got worse. Robert began working longer hours, leaving me alone with a newborn and frequent surprise visits from Margaret, who would inspect our home and offer unsolicited advice about everything from how I folded laundry to how I was holding my baby. Wrong. By the time Lily was 3, my marriage was crumbling. Robert became emotionally distant, critical, and spent less and less time at home. When I discovered evidence of his affair with a coworker, I filed for divorce. The proceedings were surprisingly quick, with Robert offering little resistance to my request for primary custody of Lily. He agreed to standard visitation every other weekend and Wednesday dinners. Margaret, however, did not take the divorce well. She called me repeatedly, alternating between pleading for reconciliation and accusing me of destroying her son's life. Eventually, for Lily's sake, we established a tenuous peace. Margaret would see Lily during some of Robert's visitation times and occasionally take her for an afternoon on weekends. These visits always left me anxious as Lily would return home with strange comments about proper little girls and how mommy's rules don't apply at grandma's house. Still, I tried to maintain the relationship. Lily loved her grandmother, and I believed having family connections was important for her development. I ignored the red flags, the way Margaret would whisper things to Lily, that she refused to repeat to me the subtle criticisms of my parenting, disguised as helpful suggestions, the little gifts that came with conditions. When Robert called to say he had an unexpected business trip that would cause him to miss his weekend with Lily, Margaret immediately offered to take her. It would be the first overnight visit, and despite my reservations, I agreed. I told myself I was being overprotective and that one night would be fine. The day before the visit, I spoke with my best friend Lauren about my concerns while we had coffee during my lunch break at the hospital. "I know I am probably overthinking this," I said, stirring my latte nervously, "but something about Margaret has always felt off to me." Lauren, who had known me since college and had met Margaret several times, nodded thoughtfully. "Trust your gut, Jess. But also remember that one night is just one night. Make sure your phone is on, and call to check in before bedtime." I spent that evening carefully packing Lily's overnight bag with her favorite pajamas, her stuffed bunny named Hoppy, her special toothbrush, and a picture book we read together every night. I wrote down her bedtime routine, her allergies to strawberries, and emergency contact information, though Margaret already had all this information. When we arrived at Margaret's house the next day, I was struck again by how formal and unwelcoming it felt. The furniture was expensive but uncomfortable looking, with cream-colored sofas wrapped in plastic and glass tables with sharp corners. There were no toys visible, though Margaret had promised she had set up activities for Lily. "We will be just fine," Margaret said, her tone dismissive, as she practically pushed me toward the door. "I raised a son, you know. I think I can handle one little girl for a night." Lily hugged me tightly before I left. "Bye, Mommy. Grandma says we are going to have a special secret day." That phrase made my stomach clench, but Margaret quickly interjected. "Just some girl time baking cookies and watching movies. Nothing for Jessica to worry about." That evening alone in my apartment felt strange. I tried to enjoy the rare quiet, catching up on a novel I had been trying to read for months and taking a long bath. But every few minutes I found myself checking my phone, waiting for it to ring. When I called at 7:30 to say goodnight to Lily, Margaret answered with obvious annoyance. "She is busy right now. We are in the middle of something important." "I just want to say goodnight," I insisted. After a long pause, Lily came to the phone. Her voice sounded small and subdued, not like her usual bubbly self. "Hi, Mommy," she said quietly. "Are you having fun, sweetheart?" I asked. "Yes," she replied, but without enthusiasm. "Grandma says I need to go now. Good night." The call ended abruptly, leaving me staring at my phone with a growing sense of unease. I told myself I was overreacting, that Lily was probably just tired from all the excitement. Still, I set my alarm for early the next morning, determined to pick her up first thing. I arrived at Margaret's house at 8:30 the next morning, 2 hours earlier than we had agreed upon. I rang the doorbell several times before Margaret answered, her hair still in curlers, and her face flushed with obvious irritation. "Jessica," we said 10:30, she snapped, blocking the doorway. "Lily and I are still having breakfast." I finished my shift early and thought I would save you some time. I lied, trying to peer around her into the house. "Is Lily ready?" Margaret's lips tightened into a thin line. "She is not. You will have to wait." Just then I heard Lily's voice call out Mommy, and a moment later, she appeared behind her grandmother, still in her pajamas, but with her overnight bag already packed beside her. Her hair was uncombed, and there were dark circles under her eyes, as if she had not slept well. "I am ready to go home," she said, pushing past Margaret and wrapping her arms around my legs. Margaret made a show of disappointment, but did not protest further as I helped Lily into her coat and shoes. The entire time, Lily clung to me, her body tense, and her usual chatter noticeably absent. "Did you have fun with Grandma?" I asked as we walked to the car. Lily just nodded silently, her eyes fixed on the ground. Once we were in the car and pulling away from Margaret's house, I tried again. "What did you do yesterday? Did you bake cookies like Grandma said?" Lily fidgeted with the seatbelt across her chest. "Can we just go home, Mommy? I am tired." The drive home was unusually quiet. Normally Lily would chatter non-stop about everything she saw out the window, asking questions and making observations. Today, she stared silently out the passenger window, occasionally glancing back, as if checking to make sure we were really leaving Margaret's neighborhood. When we arrived home, Lily went straight to her room and pulled Hoppy from her overnight bag, clutching the stuffed bunny tightly to her chest. I followed her, growing increasingly concerned by her behavior. "Sweetheart, did something happen at Grandma's house?" I asked, sitting beside her on her bed with its pink and purple butterfly comforter. "You can tell me anything, you know that, right?" Lily looked up at me, her blue eyes wide and uncertain. Then she leaned in, close, her voice dropping to a whisper so soft I had to strain to hear it. "Mommy, Grandma said I should never tell you what I saw." My heart began to race, but I kept my expression calm. "You can always tell me anything, Lily, no matter what anyone else says." "What did you see at Grandma's house?" Lily glanced nervously at her bedroom door, as if expecting Margaret to appear there. Grandma had a man come over after you called. She told me he was a special friend who helps take bad mommies away from little girls. I felt a cold chill run down my spine, but forced myself to remain outwardly calm. What do you mean by bad mommies, sweetheart? Grandma says you are a bad mommy because you took Daddy away and you do not let me do what I want. Lily's voice trembled. She showed the man pictures of you and me. Pictures I never saw before. Some were from my school, and you were not there. My hands began to shake, and I casually reached for my phone in my pocket, turning on the voice recorder application without Lily noticing. Did you hear what they talked about this man and Grandma? Lily nodded, clutching Hoppy tighter. They talked about a judge and papers and how they were going to make me live with Grandma and Daddy instead of you. Grandma said soon I would not have to follow your rules anymore. Was there anything else, Lily? Anything at all that seemed strange or scary? Lily hesitated, then whispered, Grandma has a room in her basement with a lock on the outside. She showed it to me and said it was my special room for when I come live with her. It has a bed and toys but no windows. I told her I did not want to sleep there, and she got really mad. My blood ran cold. Did she make you sleep in that room last night? Lily shook her head. No, but she said next time I might have to, if I did not start being a good girl and keeping secrets. Mommy, I do not want to go back to Grandma's house. She scares me. I pulled Lily into a tight hug, my mind racing with fear and anger. You did exactly the right thing by telling me, Lily. You will not have to go back there, I promise. And you are never, ever in trouble for telling me the truth. Grandma said you would say that, Lily whispered against my shoulder. She said all bad mommies pretend to be nice until they get what they want. I held my daughter tighter, feeling her small body trembling against mine. In that moment I knew with absolute certainty that Margaret was planning something terrible, and I needed to protect my daughter at all costs. Listen to me, Lily, I said firmly, pulling back to look her in the eyes. You are safe now. I am going to make sure no one ever tries to take you away from me. You did nothing wrong. This is all grown-up stuff that you should not have to worry about. As Lily nodded and wiped away tears with the back of her hand, I silently vowed that Margaret would never get near my daughter again. What I did not yet know was just how far my mother-in-law had already gone in her plot to take Lily away from me, or how dangerous the situation was about to become. After getting Lily settled with her favorite cartoon and a snack, I retreated to the bathroom, locked the door, and played back the recording I had made of our conversation. Hearing Lily's frightened voice describing Margaret's behavior made my hands shake with a mixture of fear and rage. This was no longer about uncomfortable family dynamics or different parenting styles. This was about a genuine threat to my daughter and our life together. I needed more information before deciding how to proceed. Calling the police immediately crossed my mind. But what evidence did I really have beyond the word of a 5-year-old? Would they take it seriously, or would it look like a vindictive ex-daughter-in-law making trouble? I called Lauren, keeping my voice low so Lily would not overhear. I need your help, I said without preamble. Something happened at Margaret's and it is bad. Really bad. Lauren listened without interrupting as I explained what Lily had told me. When I finished, she did not question or doubt, which was one of the reasons she had been my closest friend for over a decade. You need evidence, she said decisively. If Margaret is really planning something like this, there will be a paper trail, social media posts, messages, something that backs up what Lily is saying. I cannot just break into her house and search for documents, I replied. No, but you can start online, see what Margaret has been posting, and talk to Robert's sister Elizabeth. She and Margaret have always had a strained relationship, right? She might know something useful. After hanging up, I opened my laptop and began searching for any public information about Margaret. Her Facebook profile was mostly private, but I could see her group memberships. One in particular caught my attention: Righteous Guardians of Innocent Children. The description mentioned rescuing children from unfit parents and spiritual warfare against the enemies of traditional families. Several of Margaret's public posts contained vague but troubling statements about saving my granddaughter from negative influences and preparing for a divine intervention. In one photo from 3 months ago, she stood outside a family court building with the caption, "Researching options for the future. God will provide a way." My hands trembling, I texted Elizabeth Roberts' younger sister, who lived in another state. We had always gotten along reasonably well, though we rarely communicated since the divorce. "Hi Elizabeth, I hope you are well. I need to ask you something important about Margaret. Could you call me when you have a moment? It is about Lily's safety." She called within minutes, her voice tense. "What happened? Is Lily okay?" I gave her a brief summary of what Lily had told me that morning. There was a long silence before Elizabeth spoke. "I was afraid something like this might happen. Margaret has always been unstable when it comes to children in the family. Did Robert ever tell you what happened with my son Tyler when he was 4? "No. What happened?" Elizabeth sighed heavily. "Tyler stayed with her for a weekend, while my husband and I were at a conference. When we got back, he was terrified of her. Eventually, he told us that she had been telling him his parents were going to hell because we did not attend her church, and that she was going to save him by having him come live with her. She had even shown him a room she had prepared for him." My blood ran cold. "What did you do?" "We confronted her, and she denied everything, said Tyler was making it up for attention. Robert defended her, of course, but we never let Tyler stay with her alone again. She started telling everyone in the family that I was mentally unstable and turning my son against her." Elizabeth paused. "Jessica, you need to know that Margaret truly believes she is doing the right thing. In her mind, she is saving Lily, not harming her. That makes her even more dangerous." "Has she ever actually tried to take legal action against you?" "No, but I moved 2,000 miles away within a year. Distance was my protection. You do not have that option." Elizabeth hesitated. "There is something else you should know. Margaret has been posting in family groups about you for months. She has been building a case that you are an unfit mother who works too much and exposes Lily to dangerous situations." "That is ridiculous. I am a pediatric nurse, not some criminal." "I know that, but she is twisting everything. Your work schedule becomes neglect. Your friends become bad influences. Any normal parenting decision she disagrees with becomes evidence of your unfitness. Jessica, she has been planning this for a while." After speaking with Elizabeth, I checked Lily's tablet, scrolling through her game apps and message history. There I found something chilling. A series of messages from a game app that allowed communication between approved contacts. Margaret had been sending Lily messages for months, asking seemingly innocent questions like, "What time does Mommy get home from work? And does Mommy ever have friends over late at night?" And, "What do you eat for dinner when Mommy is tired?" There were also messages telling Lily that soon you will live in a proper home with proper rules, and grandmas know better than mommies what little girls need. I sat down with Lily again, this time more specifically asking about the game her grandmother played with her. "Grandma likes to play pretend that I live with her," Lily explained, looking uncomfortable. "She asks me questions and writes down my answers in her special notebook." "What kind of questions, sweetheart?" "Like if you ever leave me alone, or if I am ever hungry, or scared at home." She told me to tell her, "If you ever have men come over, or if you drink the special adult drinks that make people silly." Lily looked confused. I told her you only have Lauren and other ladies from the hospital visit, and that you only drink coffee and water and sometimes hot chocolate with me. She seemed mad about that. I felt sick realizing that Margaret had been interrogating my daughter, fishing for any information she could use against me. "The man who visited yesterday. Can you describe him to me?" Lily thought for a moment. "He was tall with gray hair on the sides but not on top. He had glasses and a blue jacket with patches on the elbows. He carried a big camera and showed Grandma pictures of our house and your car at the hospital." It sounded like a private investigator, which meant Margaret had gone far beyond idle threats. She was actively building a case to try to take custody of Lily. The realization hit me like a physical blow. This woman who had always made me uncomfortable, but who I had allowed into our lives for Lily's sake, was plotting to destroy our family. "Lily, did you see any papers, or hear them talk about a court or a judge?" Lily nodded. The man gave Grandma a folder with papers. She showed him my special room and said it was almost ready for when I come to live with her for good. She said the judge would understand that a little girl needs her grandmother and daddy more than a mommy who works all the time. My throat tightened with fear and anger. Margaret was clearly preparing to file for custody, likely planning to join forces with Robert. I needed to act quickly before she could take the next step. That afternoon, after making sure Lily was safely playing at Lauren's house, I drove back to Margaret's neighborhood with a mixture of determination and dread churning in my stomach. I had called ahead multiple times, but she had not answered. This conversation needed to happen face to face. Margaret's silver Lexus sat in the driveway, confirming she was home. I knocked firmly on the front door, my heart pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. After several minutes, the door opened, just enough for Margaret to peer out, her expression shifting from annoyance to false concern when she saw my face. "Jessica, what a surprise! Is everything all right with Lily?" Her voice was honey-sweet, but her eyes remained cold. "We need to talk, Margaret. Now." I kept my tone level despite the anger boiling inside me. She hesitated before opening the door wider. "I suppose you can come in for a minute. I was just about to leave for my church group." I followed her into the immaculate living room, declining her offer to sit. "I know what you are doing, Margaret. Lily told me everything." The transformation in her face was immediate. The pleasant mask dropped, replaced by a hard defensive glare. Children have active imaginations. Whatever Lily told you, she likely misunderstood. She misunderstood the private investigator taking photos of us. She misunderstood you, telling her she would come live with you soon. She misunderstood the locked room in your basement prepared for her. My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. Margaret's lips thinned into a tight line. "You have always been paranoid, Jessica. This is exactly why Lily deserves better than you as a mother." "So, you admit it," I said, pulling out my phone. "You are trying to take my daughter away from me." "I am trying to save her." Margaret's voice rose sharply. "You stole my son, poisoned him against me, and now you are raising my granddaughter without proper values or stability. You work ridiculous hours leaving her with strangers. You expose her to your godless lifestyle. Someone needs to protect that child." "The only person Lily needs protection from is you," I replied, struggling to keep my voice steady. "You are manipulating a 5-year-old, frightening her, and trying to turn her against her mother. That stops now." Margaret laughed, a cold sound without humor. "You cannot stop what has already begun. I have been documenting your negligence for months. The courts will see what I see." "And what exactly do you think you have documented?" "A single mother who prioritizes her career over her child, who leaves her daughter with babysitters several nights a week, who has exposed her to inappropriate influences." Margaret's eyes gleamed with righteous certainty. "I have witnessed statements from neighbors who have seen your comings and goings at all hours. I have documented every time Robert has had to adjust his schedule because you called with some work emergency." "I am a nurse," I said through clenched teeth. "Sometimes emergencies happen. That does not make me an unfit mother." "The judge will decide that," Margaret replied smugly. "Robert has finally begun to see reason as well. Once he has primary custody, Lily will have the stable home she deserves with me there, to provide the maternal guidance she needs." My blood ran cold. Robert is part of this. Something flickered across Margaret's face. "He will be. When he sees the evidence, he will support what is best for his daughter." I stepped closer to her. "Show me this evidence. Show me these witness statements and documentation you claim to have." For a moment, Margaret looked uncertain, but then her chin lifted defiantly. "I do not have to show you anything. You will see it all in court." "Where is this room you have prepared for Lily?" I demanded. "The one in the basement with the lock on the outside." "That is simply a safe space for when Lily needs quiet time," Margaret replied, but her eyes darted toward a door I knew led to the basement stairs. Without asking permission, I moved toward it. Margaret stepped quickly to block my path, but I was faster. I opened the door and hurried down the carpeted steps, ignoring her protests behind me. The basement was finished and divided into several areas. A large entertainment space, with a television and bookshelves, occupied most of it, but a corridor led to what appeared to be additional rooms. One door stood partly open, revealing what looked like a home office. The second door was closed, with a sliding bolt lock mounted on the outside, exactly as Lily had described. I slid the bolt open and pushed the door wide. Inside was a child's bedroom decorated in pink and white, with a small bed dresser and toy chest. Framed photos of Lily covered one wall, many of which I had never seen before, and appeared to have been taken without my knowledge. On the dresser sat a stack of children's clothes, all new with tags still attached in Lily's exact size. "This is not normal, Margaret," I said, my voice shaking as I turned to face her. "This is the room of a woman planning to kidnap her granddaughter." "Do not be dramatic," Margaret snapped, though she looked unnerved by my discovery. "It is a guest room for when Lily visits. With a lock on the outside, with surveillance photos. This is not a guest room. This is a prison." I moved to the desk in the corner and picked up a folder lying open on its surface. Inside were legal documents, including what appeared to be a draft petition for emergency custody, citing numerous false claims about my parenting. As I flipped through the pages, growing more horrified with each fabricated accusation, the doorbell rang upstairs. Margaret's expression changed to one of smug satisfaction. "That will be Michael," she said. "Right on time for our meeting." "The private investigator?" I asked, clutching the folder of documents. "You might as well meet him," Margaret said, turning toward the stairs. "He has certainly been getting to know you and your routines." I followed her upstairs, my mind racing. The man standing in the foyer matched Lily's description, exactly: tall, balding with gray at the temples, wire-rimmed glasses, and a blue blazer with elbow patches. He looked startled to see me. "Mrs. Miller," he said awkwardly, glancing between Margaret and me. "I was not expecting." "This is my former daughter-in-law," Margaret said coldly. "She has been snooping through my private property and making wild accusations." Michael shifted uncomfortably. "Perhaps I should come back another time." "No, please stay," I said, stepping forward with the folder still in my hand. "I would love to hear about the surveillance you have been conducting on me and my daughter without my knowledge or consent. I am sure the licensing board would be interested as well." Michael's face paled. "Mrs. Miller assured me this was a standard custody investigation with the father's consent." "My ex-husband has no idea what she is doing," I replied. "And there is nothing standard about preparing a locked room for a child you plan to take from her mother." Michael turned to Margaret, his expression now wary. "You told me this was a routine case of documenting parental fitness for a custody adjustment. You said nothing about any locked rooms." Margaret's face flushed with anger. "Do not listen to her lies. She is trying to turn you against me, just like she turned my son against me. She is an unfit mother who works all hours and leaves her child with strangers." "I am a pediatric nurse," I said calmly to Michael. "I work scheduled shifts at Memorial Children's Hospital and have arranged appropriate child care when I am working. My daughter is happy, healthy, and well-adjusted, or at least she was, until her grandmother began terrifying her with threats of taking her away from her mother." Michael looked increasingly uncomfortable. "I think I should go. Mrs. Miller, I will need to reassess whether I can continue with this case." He turned and quickly left the house. Margaret's face contorted with rage as the door closed behind him. "Look what you have done. You ruin everything you touch. First my son's life, and now this." "Your son ruined our marriage all by himself when he cheated," I replied, moving toward the door myself. "And you are ruining your relationship with your granddaughter by trying to use her as a pawn. You will not keep her from me." Margaret hissed, following me to the door. I have rights as her grandmother. I will go to court. I will tell everyone what kind of mother you really are. Stay away from us, Margaret, I said firmly. Do not call. Do not visit. If you try to contact Lily again, I will get a restraining order. Her eyes narrowed to slits. This is not over, Jessica. God has entrusted me with saving that child from your influence, and I will not fail him. One way or another, I will make sure Lily is raised properly, with or without the court's help. The threat in her voice sent a chill down my spine. I left, quickly locking my car doors as soon as I got inside. As I drove away, I could see Margaret still standing in her doorway, watching me with cold, determined eyes. That night, after picking up Lily from Lauren's house, I received a series of increasingly disturbing text messages from Margaret. You cannot keep her from her real family forever. Children belong with those who truly love them enough to save their souls. God will provide a way when the courts fail. Sometimes drastic measures are necessary to protect the innocent. The last message chilled me to the bone. If you will not see reason, I will have to take matters into my own hands. Lily deserves to be saved. I took screenshots of every message, my hands shaking so badly I could barely operate my phone. This was no longer just a grandmother overstepping boundaries or making custody threats. This was beginning to sound like a kidnapping threat from an increasingly unstable woman. The next morning, I dropped Lily off at school, with strict instructions to her teacher that only I was authorized to pick her up, no exceptions. I then went directly to my shift at the hospital, constantly checking my phone for more messages from Margaret. Instead of messages, Margaret herself appeared in the hospital lobby during my lunch break, demanding to speak with me. When security asked her to leave, she created a scene, shouting that I was an unfit mother who was keeping her granddaughter from her family. It was then that I knew I had no choice but to involve the police. The police station was busy when I arrived after my shift, clutching a folder containing screenshots of Margaret's threatening messages, the voice recording of Lily describing what happened at her grandmother's house, and photos I had taken of the locked room in Margaret's basement. I had called ahead and been told to ask for Officer Rachel Torres, who specialized in family disputes and potential child endangerment cases. Officer Torres was a compact woman with alert eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She listened without interruption as I explained the situation, occasionally taking notes or asking for clarification. This is concerning, she said when I finished reviewing the evidence I had provided. The combination of the locked room surveillance and escalating messages suggests your mother-in-law may pose a genuine threat to your daughter's safety. We can help you file for a temporary restraining order immediately, but I recommend you also consult with a family law attorney about more permanent protection. The temporary restraining order was granted that same day, prohibiting Margaret from coming within 500 feet of Lily, our home, or her school. I felt a small measure of relief, knowing there was now legal protection in place. But I also knew a piece of paper would not stop someone truly determined to take my child. My relief was short-lived. The very next day, Lily's school called to inform me that Margaret had attempted to pick Lily up, claiming there was a family emergency. Thanks to my warnings, the school staff had refused and called security, but Margaret had left a gift bag for Lily containing a new stuffed animal and a card talking about their special plan coming soon. Officer Torres added the incident to our case file and warned Margaret officially that she was violating the restraining order. Rather than deterring her, this seemed to push Margaret to become more creative in her approach. She began contacting my coworkers at the hospital, telling them I was having a mental breakdown and making up stories about her. She sent emails to Lily's school suggesting I was unstable and under investigation by Child Services, which was completely false. When I found out she had been watching our apartment and following me to work, I called Robert, who was due back from his business trip. To my surprise, he agreed to meet me at a coffee shop near my workplace. This has gone too far, I told him, sliding my phone across the table to show him the evidence I had collected. Your mother is stalking us and threatening to take Lily. She has a locked room prepared in her basement. She hired a private investigator to follow me. Robert's initial skepticism faded as he scrolled through the messages and photos. His face paled when I played the recording of Lily describing her frightening night at Margaret's house. "I had no idea," he said, his voice hollow. "She told me she was worried about Lily, but this." He looked up, his expression troubled. "Jessica, I swear I knew nothing about any of this. I would never support taking Lily from you." "Your mother seems to think you will," I replied. "She told me you are starting to see reason and will help her get custody." Robert shook his head. "That is completely false. Yes, we have had our differences, but you are a good mother. Lily is happy and well cared for. I have never questioned that." With Robert now aware of the severity of the situation, we arranged to meet with Officer Torres together to provide a united front. Robert's testimony about his mother's history of controlling behavior and obsessive tendencies added significant weight to our case. During our meeting with the police, we made another disturbing discovery. Officer Torres had been investigating Margaret's online activities and found that she had created fake social media accounts in my name, where she posted content that made it appear I was unstable, drinking heavily, and neglecting Lily. The posts were cleverly crafted to seem authentic while painting me in the worst possible light. "This is a sophisticated campaign to discredit you," Officer Torres explained. "Your mother-in-law is going to extraordinary lengths to build a case against you, even if she has to manufacture the evidence." The situation escalated further when I was checking Lily's backpack after school and found her favorite stuffed bunny, Hoppy, had been replaced with an identical one. Remembering that Hoppy had accompanied Lily to Margaret's house for the overnight stay, I carefully examined the replacement and discovered a small electronic device sewn inside, which the police later confirmed was a listening device. Margaret had been spying on our conversations at home through Lily's stuffed animal. Concerned about Lily's psychological well-being through all this, I arranged for her to meet with Susan Parker, a child psychologist recommended by the hospital where I worked. After several sessions, Susan confirmed what I already feared: Lily was showing signs of anxiety and confusion from Margaret's manipulation. "Your daughter has been subjected to what we call psychological manipulation," Susan explained during our parent consultation. "Her grandmother has been attempting to alienate her from you, while also frightening her with ideas of being taken away from her home. Lily is torn between her natural love for her grandmother and her fear of what is happening." Armed with Susan's professional assessment, Robert and I went to family court to request a formal protection order that would provide more comprehensive safeguards than the temporary restraining order. The judge reviewed our evidence seriously and scheduled an emergency hearing for the following week. The night before the hearing, I woke at 2 a.m. to the sound of someone trying to open our apartment door. Heart pounding. I called 911 while checking that Lily was still safely asleep in her bed. The dispatcher kept me on the line until police arrived 7 minutes later, but by then whoever had been at the door was gone. The responding officers found scratch marks around the lock, indicating someone had tried to pick it. They also found a car matching the description of Margaret's Lexus parked 2 blocks away. When they approached the vehicle, they found Margaret sitting inside with a bag containing sedatives, a passport for Lily that I had never applied for, and plane tickets to Canada for the following day. Margaret was arrested on the spot for attempted breaking and entering violation of the restraining order, and attempted kidnapping based on the evidence in her possession. As the officers led her away in handcuffs, she screamed that she was saving Lily from me, and that God's law supersedes man's law. The confrontation I had feared had finally come to a head, but not in the way I had expected. Instead of a prolonged court battle, Margaret's actions had accelerated the process and revealed the true extent of her dangerous obsession. As I held Lily close that night, reassuring her that the noise was nothing to worry about, I felt both relieved that Margaret had been stopped and heartbroken that it had come to this. The days following Margaret's arrest were a blur of police interviews, court appearances, and concerned phone calls from friends and family. Margaret was charged with multiple offenses: attempted kidnapping, stalking, harassment violation, of a restraining order forgery for the fake passport, and breaking and entering. The district attorney also considered charging her with child endangerment for the locked room in her basement. Robert was devastated. The mother he had known his entire life had been revealed as someone capable of elaborate deception and potentially dangerous actions. He blamed himself for not seeing the warning signs for defending her controlling behavior over the years as just being old-fashioned or protective. "I should have seen this coming," he said during one of our meetings with Catherine Winters, the family attorney we had hired to navigate the complex legal situation. "Looking back, there were so many red flags. The way she tried to control our marriage, her obsession with Lily from the moment she was born, her belief that she always knows better than everyone else." Catherine, a seasoned family law attorney with silver-streaked dark hair and a reputation for being both compassionate and formidable, had taken our case with determination. Family dynamics often blind us to behaviors we would immediately recognize as problematic in others, she assured Robert. "What matters now is ensuring Lily's ongoing safety and helping her process what has happened in an age-appropriate way." The family court quickly granted a permanent protection order, prohibiting Margaret from any contact with Lily. The criminal court ordered a psychiatric evaluation before Margaret's arraignment, which revealed what we had begun to suspect: she suffered from several serious mental health conditions, including delusional disorder with grandiose, religious themes, and narcissistic personality disorder. The psychiatrist's report indicated that Margaret genuinely believed she was on a divine mission to save Lily from my influence, which in her mind justified any actions she took, legal or otherwise. The court mandated psychiatric treatment for Margaret as part of any potential plea agreement. She was held without bail due to the flight risk she presented, given the evidence of the plane tickets and fake passport. Throughout this process, Robert and I found ourselves cautiously rebuilding a relationship based on our shared concern for Lily. The man who had been an absent, disinterested father during our marriage was now stepping up, attending every meeting, every court date, and asking thoughtful questions about how to help Lily feel secure again. "I want to be a better father," he told me one evening, as we sat in my kitchen after Lily had gone to bed. "I was so caught up in my own life, my career, that I missed what was happening with my own mother, with my own daughter. I will not make that mistake again." I believed him. Crisis has a way of revealing character, and Robert had shown himself to be, if not the husband, I had needed, at least a father willing to learn and grow for his daughter's sake. The impact on Lily, however, was my greatest concern. She had begun having nightmares about being taken away, about locked rooms and whispered secrets. She would wake up crying, needing reassurance that she was safe, that her grandmother could not get to her. With the recommendation of Susan Parker, Lily began regular sessions with Grace Chen, a child psychologist specializing in trauma and family conflict. Grace used play therapy, art, and child-friendly discussions to help Lily process her experiences and fears. "Children are remarkably resilient," Grace assured me, after one session showing me a drawing Lily had made of our family. "The key is to provide consistency, safety, and honest age-appropriate explanations. Lily understands more than you might think, but she also needs to know that what happened was not her fault, and that she is protected now." I took her advice to heart, establishing new routines to help Lily feel secure. We created a worry box, where she could write or draw her fears, and then symbolically lock them away. We practiced relaxation techniques for when she felt anxious. Robert joined us for weekend activities, showing Lily that both her parents were united in keeping her safe. Meanwhile, the legal process continued. Robert made the difficult but necessary decision to support the no-contact order between his mother and Lily. This put him at odds with some family members who felt he was being disloyal or overreacting. "My aunt called last night," he told me, after a particularly difficult court session. "She said I am abandoning my mother when she needs me most, that family should stand by family no matter what. She does not understand that I am standing by family. I am standing by my daughter." Elizabeth, who had provided crucial information about Margaret's past behavior, flew in to testify at the final hearing. Her testimony about the similar incident with her son years before established a pattern of behavior that strengthened our case. Margaret has always believed that her way is the only right way, Elizabeth testified. When others do not conform to her expectations, especially regarding children in the family, she sees it as her divine mission to intervene regardless of boundaries or laws. Other family members testified as well, some supporting Margaret with claims that she was just a loving grandmother being villainized, others confirming her history of controlling behavior and religious extremism. The divided family response was painful to witness but reinforced that we had made the right decision in prioritizing Lily's safety over family harmony. The most difficult moment came when Margaret herself took the stand. Still believing in the righteousness of her actions, she spoke with complete conviction about her God-given duty to protect Lily from my ungodly influence. She showed no remorse, insisting that the courts, the police, and even her own son had been manipulated by me. "She cannot see how wrong she was," Robert said afterward, his voice tight with emotion. "Even now, facing jail time and psychiatric commitment, she believes she was doing the right thing. That is what scares me the most." The final court ruling was comprehensive. Margaret was barred from any contact with Lily until she reached adulthood, with potential for supervised contact only after completing extensive psychiatric treatment and with Lily's consent. Once she was older, she was sentenced to 2 years in a psychiatric facility, with additional probation and monitoring to follow. As we left the courthouse after the final hearing, I felt an odd mixture of relief, vindication, and profound sadness. A woman who should have been a loving presence in Lily's life had instead become someone we needed protection from. Robert seemed to read my thoughts. "It is okay to feel sad about what might have been," he said quietly as we walked to our cars. "Lily has lost a grandmother. I have lost the mother I thought I knew. And even Margaret has lost the family connection she valued so highly, all because she could not respect boundaries or accept reality." In the months that followed, we worked to establish a new normal. I had conversations with Lily about what had happened, carefully framing the situation in terms she could understand. "Grandma Margaret is sick," I explained, when she asked why she could not see her grandmother anymore. "Not sick like when you get a cold, but sick in her thinking. She gets confused about what is real and what is not, and that confusion made her do things that were not safe. She is getting help from doctors now, but until she gets better, we need to keep our distance to stay safe." "Will she ever get better?" Lily asked. "I do not know, sweetheart," I answered honestly. "Sometimes this kind of sickness is very hard to fix. But what I do know is that you are safe, you are loved, and you have a mommy and daddy who will always protect you." It was a difficult balance, helping Lily understand the situation without burdening her with adult concerns or demonizing her grandmother. But with time, patience, and professional guidance, we began to see progress. The nightmares became less frequent. The anxiety attacks subsided. Lily began to laugh and play with the carefree joy of childhood once more. And perhaps most surprisingly, Robert and I developed a stronger co-parenting relationship than we had ever had during our marriage. The crisis had forced us to communicate openly, to rely on each other, and to put Lily's needs above our own differences. It was not the family structure I had envisioned when I married him years ago, but it was one that now provided Lily with stability, safety, and the love of both her parents. 6 months after Margaret's sentencing, our lives had found a new rhythm. Lily had just started kindergarten, thriving in the structured environment and making friends easily. The dark circles that had haunted her eyes in the aftermath of Margaret's arrest were gone, replaced by the bright, curious gaze of a child discovering the world. I had returned to my regular schedule at the hospital, no longer jumping at shadows or checking over my shoulder constantly. The security system I had installed in our apartment rarely crossed my mind now, though its presence still provided peace of mind during the night. Robert had become the father I had always hoped he would be: reliable, and engaged in Lily's life. We had established a flexible co-parenting arrangement that prioritized Lily's needs above strict adherence to a visitation schedule. When I had night shifts, Robert would often stay at my apartment in the guest room to maintain Lily's routine, a level of cooperation I would have thought impossible during our divorce. One evening, as Lily played with her dolls in the living room, I found myself reflecting on how much had changed and what I had learned through this ordeal. The most important lesson had been to trust my instincts. The uneasiness I had always felt around Margaret was not, as I had been led to believe, jealousy or oversensitivity. It was my intuition, warning me about genuine danger. As a mother, I had an innate sense of what felt wrong for my child, and I would never again dismiss those feelings to maintain family harmony or avoid conflict. I had also learned about the insidious nature of manipulation. Margaret had been planting seeds of doubt about my parenting for years, so subtle that I often questioned myself rather than her motives. Now I recognized the tactics, the backhanded compliments, the helpful suggestions that undermined my confidence, the whispered comments to Lily that created confusion about rules and authority. Awareness of these tactics had made me more resilient against them, not just from Margaret, but in all relationships. My support network had proven invaluable. Lauren had been my rock throughout the crisis, offering practical help and emotional support without judgment. My colleagues at the hospital had rallied around me when Margaret tried to turn them against me. Even my neighbors, who I had barely known before, became allies in keeping watch for any suspicious activity around our building. This realization led me to join a support group for parents dealing with family estrangement and custody conflicts. The group met monthly in a community center downtown, and the stories I heard there helped me understand that while my situation was difficult, I was not alone. Many parents faced similar struggles with boundary violations, manipulation, and the grief of family relationships turned toxic. The hardest part I shared during one meeting is explaining to Lily why someone who claimed to love her would behave this way. How do you help a child understand something that even adults struggle to comprehend? Joanna, a mother of two, who had cut ties with her own parents after years of emotional abuse, nodded in understanding. Children are remarkably adaptable. They do not need perfect explanations. They need honesty, consistency, and to know they are not responsible for adult problems. Your daughter will take her cues from you. If you approach this with calm confidence rather than bitterness, she will learn that sometimes loving someone means setting boundaries, even difficult ones. Her words stayed with me, influencing how I navigated conversations with Lily when questions about Margaret inevitably arose. Robert had undergone his own journey of growth and healing. Through therapy, he had begun to recognize the patterns of manipulation in his upbringing that had shaped his adult relationships. He spoke candidly about his emotional absence during our marriage, how he had retreated into work rather than face the conflict between his mother and me. I spent my whole life trying to keep the peace with my mother by giving in, he explained during a co-parenting discussion. I thought I was being a good son, but I was actually enabling behavior that eventually threatened our daughter. I will live with that regret for a long time. His accountability was healing for both of us, allowing us to forge a new relationship built on mutual respect rather than the resentment that had characterized our divorce. For Lily, the healing process continued with Grace's skillful guidance. Through play therapy and art, Lily expressed feelings she did not yet have words for: confusion about loving someone who had frightened her, fear that other adults might also have secret plans, worry that she had somehow caused the family conflict. Grace taught her age-appropriate concepts about healthy relationships and boundaries, using stories and metaphors that made sense to a 5-year-old mind. One particularly effective technique was the boundary castle drawing, where Lily created a castle with different levels of access for different people in her life, visualizing who was allowed close to her heart and who needed to stay outside. The moat. We created new family traditions to fill the void left by the loss of Margaret's presence. Sunday morning pancake breakfasts, weekly trips to the local library for story time, monthly adventure days where Lily chose a new place to explore. These rituals provided security and joy, gradually replacing the memories of Margaret's special secret days with healthier, transparent family experiences. When Lily asked about her grandmother, as she occasionally did, I answered truthfully, but age-appropriately. Grandma Margaret has some big feelings that she does not know how to handle in a safe way. I would explain. She loves you very much, but her way of showing love became scary and unsafe. The grown-ups in your life decided that until she learns better ways to show love, it is best for you to have some space from her. Sometimes Lily would follow up with difficult questions. Will I ever see Grandma again? Or, is Grandma still mad at you? Or, does Grandma still want to take me away? I answered each question honestly, always reassuring her that she was safe, and that the adults in her life were handling the situation. As a pediatric nurse, I had always been attuned to signs of trauma in children, but experiencing it with my own child gave me a deeper understanding that informed my professional work as well. I became more adept at recognizing subtle indications of family dysfunction in the children I treated, more proactive in connecting families with appropriate resources before crisis points were reached. I even began volunteering monthly for a community education program on recognizing signs of child psychological manipulation and alienation, sharing my expertise both as a healthcare professional and as a parent who had navigated these difficult waters. Life was not perfect. Margaret still sent occasional letters from the psychiatric facility which the court allowed me to screen before deciding whether to share any content with Lily. Most contained the same delusional justifications and thinly veiled accusations. But I kept them in a secure file, unsure if someday, when Lily was much older, she might want to understand this chapter of her family history more fully. Robert's extended family remained divided, some maintaining that Margaret had been treated unfairly, others acknowledging the severity of her actions, but still pushing for reconciliation for the sake of family. We navigated these complex dynamics, carefully allowing contact with relatives who respected our boundaries while limiting time with those who might undermine Lily's sense of security. Through it all, the most profound lesson I learned was about the true meaning of motherhood. Being a mother was not just about providing food, shelter, and education. It was about standing as a shield between my child and harm, even when that harm came from someone who should have been safe. It was about making difficult decisions that might be criticized or misunderstood because they were right for my child. It was about modeling resilience and healthy boundaries, so that my daughter would grow up knowing how to protect herself and recognize genuine love. As I tucked Lily into bed that night, her sleepy voice asked a question that caught me by surprise. "Mommy, are you glad you called the police about Grandma?" I considered my answer carefully. I am sad that things happened in a way that made calling the police necessary. I wish Grandma could have made better choices. But am I glad I did what was needed to keep you safe? Yes, absolutely. Keeping you safe is the most important job I have. Lily nodded, seemingly satisfied with this answer. I am glad too, she said simply before drifting off to sleep. In that moment, watching my daughter sleep peacefully in her bed, secure in the knowledge that she was protected and loved, I knew that despite the pain and chaos we had endured, we had emerged stronger. The road ahead would have its challenges, but we would face them together with clear boundaries, open communication, and the unshakable bond between a mother and her child. If you have ever had to make difficult decisions to protect someone you love, please share your experience in the comments below. Have you ever had to trust your instincts, even when others doubted you? I would love to hear your stories. Please like this video if it resonated with you. Subscribe to hear more real-life experiences, and share with someone who might need to be reminded that protecting those we love sometimes requires tremendous courage. Thank you for listening, and remember, your intuition is a gift, not a burden. Trust it.